Welcome to Season 2 of the More You Know Media and Tech Literacy series, produced by Independent Thinker, LLC. The More You Know Media and Tech Literacy series is a quarterly educational initiative that helps individuals and communities better understand the realities of today's digital ecosystem. In Episode 3, we cover Defending Digital Rights Against ICE and CBP Surveillance. We turn the mic to Tommy and Gina for an insightful discussion about this topic.
So imagine you're just walking down your street, right? And you walk past a totally regular orange traffic cone.
Right, just sitting by the crosswalk.
Yeah, exactly, just sitting there.
Right.
But what you probably don't know is that hidden inside that cone is this high-tech camera. And it's silently scanning your license plate, logging your location, and just beaming it directly to a federal database.
It's wild, the whole cinematic idea of like guys in dark suits sitting in a van with binoculars.
Oh, yeah, totally did.
Right. Today, the van is your smartwatch. It's, the apps on your phone. It's literally that traffic cone.
It's an invisible net. And you walk through it every single day completely unaware of how many of these digital tripwires you're crossing.
Exactly. And mapping out that net is basically our mission for today's deep dive.
Right, because we've been looking at this incredible stack of sources to really understand the modern digital surveillance ecosystem. We've got transcripts from 2 Electronic Frontier Foundation events, that's the EFF, including this massive town hall on surveillance, and an interview with privacy pioneer Cindy Cohn.
Yeah, plus an EFF blog post from a targeted student, an urgent update on Section 702 of the FISA court, and this really revealing investigative report from The Lever.
Which is a lot to get through, but the goal here is to decode how the line between, corporate data collection and government intelligence has just completely evaporated.
Yeah, we're going to look at how this tech is deployed right on the streets you walk on, and
right.
honestly, most importantly, what actual practical tools you have to protect your rights.
And I just want to say right up front, even if you're someone who thinks, hey, I have nothing to hide, I'm a good citizen, stick around.
Yeah, definitely stick around.
Because by the end of this, you're going to see exactly why your everyday smart devices have huge implications for your daily life, your freedom of expression, and, your physical safety.
Absolutely. So to start, we kind of have to look at the cloud, right? Before we even get to the cameras on the street, we have to understand what's happening to our personal data.
Right. The overarching theme here is how so the stuff generated by your apps and your devices is being aggressively repurposed for government use.
And that report from The Lever lays this out so brilliantly. They uncovered this $12.2 million contract that Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, recently signed.
With a defense vendor, right? EdgeOps LLC.
Yep. And they built an AI tool called Project Safe Haven.
Which, Safe Haven sounds like a community shelter or something, but the mechanics of it are incredibly invasive. The report talks about how it relies on persistent passive data collection.
Yeah, and we should really unpack what that means mechanically, because I think a lot of people just assume the government has to, actively hack your phone to track you.
Right. Like someone typing furiously on a keyboard in a dark room.
Exactly. But it's not that at all. Passive collection means they're just scooping up the digital exhaust you naturally leave behind.
So every time you walk down the street, your phone, your tablet, your smartwatch, they're constantly just shouting into the void, right? Like, I'm here! Are there any Wi-Fi networks around?
Right, those pings. And those pings get collected by routers, packaged up by data brokers, and then sold. And Project Safe Haven just ingests all that commercial data.
Wow.
Yeah, from Wi-Fi networks, cell phones, everything. And it uses AI to map out the patterns of life of immigrants.
Patterns of life? That sounds so dystopian.
It really does. It establishes where they habitually go, their driving routes to work, their behavioral patterns, all to categorize them as potential threats.
Which is terrifying. And to put a human face on this, our sources included this really chilling story from a man named Amandla Thomas Johnson.
Right, the PhD student.
Yeah, so he's a UK and Trinidad dual citizen studying in the US on a student visa. And he attended a pro-Palestine protest at Cornell University.
And the crazy detail here is that he was only at that protest for 5 minutes.
5 minutes. But months later, ICE sends this administrative subpoena to Google demanding all his data.
And historically, Google has made this promise to notify users before handing over data to law enforcement, specifically to give the user a chance to fight it in court.
Exactly. But in this case, Google just handed it over. No warning at all. They gave ICE his IP address, his physical address, and his session times.
And if you look at the mechanics of what that data actually is, it's so revealing. An IP address gives them a rough location. The physical address tells them exactly where he sleeps.
Right.
And session times. That tells investigators the precise hours of the day he's awake, online, and communicating with people.
It's literally a digital jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
If you just look at, say, one single Wi-Fi ping or one session log, it's just a blank piece of cardboard. It tells you nothing.
Exactly.
But when an AI tool snaps thousands of those pieces together, suddenly you have this high-definition picture of where you sleep, who you hang out with, your daily routine.
All right there.
But this really makes me wonder if a tech giant like Google just folds to a basic administrative request, like without a judge's warrant, does the wall between corporate data and government intelligence even exist anymore?
Well, privacy advocates would argue that the wall is just completely gone. What we have now is a massive loophole.
How so?
Because the government is actually the #1 purchaser of private data from commercial data brokers.
Wait, they just buy it?
Yep.
Ah.
Traditionally, under the Fourth Amendment, if law enforcement wanted to track your movements, they had to go to a judge, show probable cause, and get a warrant.
Right. Due process.
But now,
Yeah.
they literally just pull out a credit card. They buy the exact same surveillance profiles that, advertisers build to sell you shoes, and they use them for law enforcement.
Okay, so we just spent all this time talking about how the government buys our data from advertisers to essentially avoid getting a warrant. But the wild part is, even when they do rely on the law to collect data directly, they found a way around the warrant requirement anyway.
Yeah, this brings us to Section 702.
Right, so how does that work with Section 702?
So this is a fiercely debated legal loophole involving Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA. And originally, Section 702 was designed strictly to target foreign communications.
Okay.
The idea was to allow the National Security Agency, the NSA, to monitor non-Americans overseas who pose a national security threat.
But to do that, they're sweeping data from the internet backbone, which, that sounds super abstract. What does sweeping the backbone actually mean mechanically?
Right. So the internet isn't a magical cloud. It's a physical infrastructure. It's made of massive undersea cables and giant server hubs.
Clear.
So sweeping the backbone means the NSA is physically intercepting the flow of data at these major physical junctions. And the mechanical problem with this dragnet approach is that it inevitably sweeps up millions of communications from everyday Americans.
Just by accident.
Yeah, Americans who just happen to be interacting with people overseas or even just using servers that are based abroad.
Okay, so the NSA ends up with this massive database of intercepted emails, texts, calls. And this is where that backdoor search loophole comes in, right? Because the FBI has access to that NSA database.
Exactly. And the FBI uses this database for domestic investigations without ever getting a warrant.
Wow.
The logic they use is basically a finder's keeper's argument. They claim that because the NSA already legally collected the data under a foreign intelligence law, the data is technically already in the government's possession.
Oh, I see.
Therefore, the FBI argues they don't need a warrant to search through it for domestic crimes.
So it's like if the government gets a warrant to search a specific house for stolen goods, but while they're in the neighborhood, they just decide to, read the diaries of everyone living next door just in case they find something interesting. Like, hey, we're already here. Why not look?
That is a brilliant way to visualize it. And it's exactly why Senator Ron Wyden has been sounding the alarm so loudly. He issued this public warning about a secret interpretation of the law that intelligence agencies are using.
Right, because he stressed this isn't just about catching international spies anymore.
Exactly. This directly affects law-abiding citizens. He specifically pointed out that the targets of these warrantless backdoor searches could easily include journalists talking to overseas sources or foreign aid workers.
And even women seeking abortion medication from international providers, right? That was in the update.
Yes, that too.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second just to represent what a lot of people listening might be thinking.
Sure.
After the massive intelligence failures of 9/11, the public and politicians demanded that agencies stop being so siloed. The whole mandate was to tear down the walls between agencies and connect the dots to keep everyone safe.
Right.
So isn't this CISA system and the data sharing between the NSA and the FBI, isn't that just fulfilling that post-9/11 mandate?
And that is the exact argument used by intelligence agencies and their defenders. Following 9/11, there was a massive paradigm shift. The mentality moved toward what critics call trying to surveil ourselves to safety.
Surveil ourselves to safety.
Yeah. And the stated goal is entirely focused on national security, preventing another tragedy, which is valid. But constitutional scholars neutrally point out that this specific mechanism, mass collection, followed by backdoor searching, fundamentally bypasses the Fourth Amendment.
Because the Fourth Amendment requires individualized suspicion.
Exactly. You have to suspect a specific person of a specific crime to get a warrant. But this modern approach flips that completely upside down. It treats mass surveillance as the default state.
Just collect everything, just in case.
Right. It operates on the premise that the government needs to constantly collect everyone's data just in case they need to look for something later.
So, okay, that is the invisible digital cloud, right? The NSA databases, the data broker pipelines. But let's bring it back down to earth, back to that orange traffic cone on your street. Because this surveillance isn't just happening on distant server farms.
No, it's very much deployed in our neighborhoods. The street-level tech is expanding so rapidly. Look at the tools currently used by ICE and Customs and Border Protection CBP. They deploy an application called Mobile Fortify right on their phones.
Which essentially acts as a one-stop shop for assessing a person's citizenship status right there on the sidewalk.
Yep.
But the way it does this is highly controversial.
Very. An agent can just point their phone camera at someone's face, and Mobile Fortify uses facial recognition to determine their identity and status.
Just from a photo on the street.
Yeah, and what's alarming is that this digital assessment can sometimes be used to override actual physical legal documentation that the person might literally be holding in their hands.
Wow. That's terrifying, especially since facial recognition is so flawed.
Exactly. Privacy experts constantly stress that facial recognition technology, especially when used on marginalized groups, is notoriously prone to false matches. And it's not just government databases they're checking. These agents have access to tools like Clearview AI.
Right, which is a private company.
Yes, and Clearview AI utilizes a staggering database of 200 million images that they've scraped from public social media profiles, completely without anyone's consent.
And it's not just tracking faces either, right? It's tracking vehicles. The EFF Town Hall spent a lot of time on automated license plate readers, or ALPR.
Yes, the ALPRs are everywhere.
These are cameras supplied by private companies like Flock and Motorola's Vigilant Solutions, and they just scan every single passing car, logging the plate, the time, the location. And going back to our opening, one of the most striking details from the sources is that CBP actively uses covert ALPRs.
This part is so wild.
They literally hide these high-tech cameras inside hollowed-out traffic barrels and cones near the border and in surrounding communities.
And the data from those cones doesn't just stay with CBP. That's the important part. It is frequently shared across state and local lines, feeding right back into that massive corporate government pipeline we talked about.
It's all connected.
It is. Which is why organizations like the EFF are fighting this in the courts. And they're actually tracking the deployment of these cameras through a public database they created called the Atlas of Surveillance.
Okay, so if the government has cameras hidden in traffic cones and they're scanning every face in a crowd with a phone app, what happens when ordinary people pull out their own phones and turn the cameras back on law enforcement?
Well, this is where the tension really boiled over. Turning the cameras back on authorities brings us directly into First Amendment territory. It's the right to observe. And it brings up the practical steps citizens have to take to protect themselves from retaliation.
Because the legal baseline is completely clear, right? Recording ICE and police in public while they're carrying out official duties is a fundamental First Amendment right.
Absolutely.
But the EFF Town Hall noted that observers and protesters are facing unprecedented levels of intimidation and device seizure, like officers just simply grabbing people's phones.
They are. And because of that physical reality, the EFF experts spent a lot of time unpacking this vital concept of threat modeling for public protests.
Threat modeling.
Yeah. And threat modeling isn't about being paranoid. It's just about calculating your specific risks. Security isn't one size fits all. And one of the most crucial and honestly surprising legal distinctions they highlight is the actual mechanism of how you lock your screen.
This part blew my mind. The legal difference between using a passcode, like typing in 6 digits, versus using biometrics, like your fingerprint or Face ID.
It's a huge difference, and it entirely comes down to the Fifth Amendment, which protects you against self-incrimination.
Oh, yeah.
Courts generally view a memorized passcode as the contents of your mind. So legally, you can refuse to tell an officer your passcode because speaking it aloud would be self-incriminating.
Right.
However, your fingerprint or your face, that is considered a physical characteristic, not speech.
Which means authorities might legally, or just practically, in the heat of the moment, grab your hand and press your thumb to the sensor. Or just grab your phone and hold the screen up to your face to force it to unlock.
Exactly. So the immediate actionable advice they give is to disable biometric unlocks when you are heading into a heavily policed environment.
Use a passcode.
Always use a passcode, but the threat modeling goes deeper than that because bringing a standard, fully connected smartphone to a protest is essentially like walking into a stealth mission wearing a neon tracking beacon.
That's a great analogy.
It's constantly broadcasting your exact location to cell towers and ad networks.
So if our phones so easily betray us, is the ultimate advice just to, leave the phone at home?
Well, the experts acknowledge that that is a deeply personal calculation of risk. For a lot of people, leaving the phone behind just isn't an option. You need it to coordinate, to call for help, and to record abuses.
Right. It's a safety tool.
Exactly. So the middle ground involves technical precautions.
Like using airplane mode. Because by turning on airplane mode, you mechanically stop the phone from transmitting its location to the cell towers. And the EFF mentioned relying on offline maps, specifically this app called Co-Maps.
Which is brilliant.
The mechanics of it are so cool. GPS is actually a receive-only technology. Your phone just listens to signals from satellites to figure out where it is, but it doesn't transmit anything back to the satellite.
Right.
So with an offline map, you can navigate the streets without beaming your location to those real-time ad-bidding networks we talked about earlier.
They also discussed encrypted messaging apps, like Signal. Now, the encryption technology behind Signal is incredibly secure. The data is completely scrambled while it travels through the air.
Okay.
But there's a practical vulnerability at the endpoint. If you're in a group chat and a friend in that chat is detained and their phone is seized while it's unlocked,
Whoa.
the police now have access to the plain text of your entire conversation. The encryption only protects the data in transit, not when it's sitting fully readable on a screen.
And there was a massive legal caveat stressed regarding this.
Yes, very important.
If you know there's an active police investigation underway, or if someone is currently being detained, deleting data or hastily dropping out of chats is legally considered destruction of evidence or obstruction of justice.
Yeah, you cannot wipe your phone to protect yourself once an investigation is actively happening. That is a critical point.
Oh, wow.
So the overarching advice for threat modeling is to apply basic security updates to your software because out-of-date software is much easier for police forensic extraction tools to hack and to deeply understand the lockdown features of your specific device before you ever step into a chaotic environment.
That's a lot to think about. And
Yeah.
it feels like the immediate reaction to all this vulnerability, to all this surveillance, is this desire to legislate a safety net, right?
Yeah, naturally.
Which brings us to a major contemporary debate covered in our materials. There is this whole wave of new state legislation aiming to protect vulnerable people online. But privacy experts are warning that these laws might actually put them at far greater risk.
Right, we're talking about the recent wave of state laws pushing for mandatory age verification.
Okay.
The stated goal of these laws is to ban users under 16, or sometimes even 18, from using social media platforms in order to protect their mental health.
And in the interview with Taylor Lorenz, Cindy Cohn, who's the former head of the EFF, she argued fiercely against these laws. And her argument is based on the actual mechanics of how this verification happens.
Yes.
She pointed out that forcing every single user to upload a copy of their government ID to a tech company creates a massive security vulnerability. She specifically cited this recent incident where Discord suffered a data breach.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and literal photos of users holding their personal IDs were leaked online.
It's a hacker's dream. And beyond the glaring cybersecurity risk of creating these giant honeypots of IDs, there's a profound chilling effect on marginalized communities. Cohn shared this heartbreaking story about day laborers she met. These workers were throwing their cell phones away in the trash, literally opting to live on the streets without any means of communication, out of sheer terror that ICE would track them through their devices.
That is devastating. And she contrasted that fear with how the internet serves as a vital lifeline. Like for LGBTQ+ youth or kids living in violently unsafe home environments, the internet isn't just a place to, waste time scrolling.
No, not at all.
It is their chosen community and sometimes their only source of emotional support. But I do want to push back on behalf of the listener for a second.
Okay, go ahead.
Because to a lot of people, protecting kids online sounds like a total no-brainer. We know there's very real documented harm happening to teenagers on social media. Why is taking their phones away or verifying their age inherently the wrong approach?
It's a fair question. Cohn argues that it comes down to unintended consequences and flawed assumptions. These laws apply a one-size-fits-all idealized family model to legislation,
Meaning what?
meaning it assumes every child has a safe home environment and supportive, tech-savvy parents to help them navigate the world. But by legally mandating that everyone, adults and children alike, hand over government IDs to tech platforms just to access the internet, we are directly fueling the exact corporate government data pipeline we discussed at the very beginning of this deep dive.
Oh, wow. I see.
Yeah, we are legally forcing users to give the most sensitive data possible to the very companies that then turn around and sell it or hand it over to the government without a warrant. It cuts off lifelines for the vulnerable while simultaneously expanding the surveillance net for everyone else.
It really does bring the whole deep dive full circle. The modern surveillance state isn't just some outside force watching us. It relies on a seamless fusion of our own corporate data habits and government overreach.
Exactly. And fighting back against it, as all these materials outline, requires action on two distinct fronts.
Right.
There are microactions. Understanding your personal threat model, updating your phone software, using offline maps, and turning off biometric unlocks in a crowd.
And then there are the macro actions, right? Like organizing locally to cancel ALPR camera contracts in your city, or pushing Congress to close those backdoor search loopholes in mass surveillance laws like Section 702.
It is an invisible net, but once you understand the mechanics of how it's woven, you can actually start navigating it.
We want to leave you, the listener, with a final, lingering question to ponder today. Consider the smartphone sitting next to you right now. It is an absolute miracle of human connection. But mechanically, by design, it is also a highly efficient, tireless informant. If the default setting of modern technology is to relentlessly collect and share our most intimate data, at what point does simply participating in modern society require us to forfeit our constitutional rights?
A truly critical question for all of us to consider as we move forward.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking questions, check your phone settings, and stay curious.
For more episodes related to media, social media, tech, and privacy, visit our YouTube channel, Independent Thinker LLC.